Okay, this is Mr. Peterson, and my goal here in this video is to show you a fairly complicated process for coming up with a parabola quadratic. You can see kind of a parabolic curve there, and I could fit a parabola through there fairly well. And the goal here is to take this data, these points, and you can see they're graphed here, and find the equation of a parabola that would fit them fairly well, or a parabolic model. It's also called a quadratic model, and you can see that I have this equation down here that I've found, and this parabola that results does a pretty good job of kind of splitting the difference between the variations in this data. Kind of goes above this data piece here and below that one and above that one, and kind of goes through the middle. But it does a pretty good job of coming through the middle of that data and resembling the overall pattern that we see there. And this is called the parabola of best fit, or the quadratic regression model. And our goal in this video is to show you how to use a Ti84 calculator to come up with this equation. Okay, so we're going to take you through the whole process, and I'll try to do this step by step. You can pause the video and follow along. I highly suggest that. So our first goal is to get this data into the calculator, but we need to make sure our calculator is cleared and ready to go. So we're going to clear the random access memory on our calculator, and the keystrokes are the second key, the plus sign, 7, 1, 2. So I have my calculator here, and I'll show you those steps. You hit the second key, it's a blue one, and then come down to the plus sign, and you want to choose choice number 7, which is reset, then choice number 1, all random access memory, and number 2, reset. So that clears the RAM of your calculator. You only want to do this if you don't have programs that you put into your calculator, because this will wipe those out. Okay, next you're going to enter the data into the calculator, and you start by going to stat and 1. You'll see what that gives you. Hit the stat key, and it's the first choice, edit, which is number 1. And that takes you to these two lists. So we have to put all the x values into one list and the y values into the second list. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that data back over here, and we're going to go 18, enter, 21, enter, 31, and so on until we get all the x's entered. Then you use the right arrow to go over to the next column, and you put in all the y values into list number 2. And it's worth double checking to make sure you've got all of the points accurately entered. So 18, 22, 21, 43, 31, 60, 39, 65, 45, 50, and 51, 29. Now, one telltale way to tell if you've left something off is if these lists are different lengths, and later in the process your calculator is going to tell you about that error in a very nasty message that says dimension mismatch error. It'll be essentially trying to tell you that list 1 and list 2 don't have the same amount of information in them, and you know that you either left an x off or a y off, or you put an extra on one of them. Okay, the data is stage 3 here, view the data on a scatter plot. So you're going to start this by going to the y equals key. You have to use the up arrow to get up where it says plot 1, and you select plot 1 by hitting enter. So it's y equals, which is this key, and then up arrow, enter, and you should have plot 1 highlighted or darkened, and that means you've turned it on. So that's the result, the resulting screen. Okay, next you're going to automatically set the viewing window, and the viewing window that we're going to use is one that's pre-programmed into the calculator. It's called the Zoom Stat feature, and it's number 9 under the Zoom button. So if I hit Zoom, it's hidden down there. I normally don't do this, I'll just hit 9, but I'm going to scroll down there so you can see which choice you're selecting. There it is, Zoom Stat. So you just have to hit Zoom 9 and it'll take you right to the screen where you see the data. And you can see kind of a parabolic path there, so we know we have quadratic data. Okay, the next stage is to find that regression equation. And you're going to start this path on the same key you did a minute ago. When you edited the data, you're going to hit the Stat key again. But this time you want to go over a column to the Calc menu. So I'm going to hit the right arrow. And the choice you want for quadratic data is Quadratic Regression, which is choice number 5. So touch 5. At this point, if you have a Ti83 calculator, you're going to notice some major differences. And you need to come and ask me how to do all this process on your calculator. Okay. Now we're going to let the calculator know where we want to store the regression line. It'll become important that we actually get the calculator to automatically store it. And so you're going to come down to this third line down by hitting the down arrow. Down, down, down. And then we need to put a Y1 on here because that's where we want it to put this information. You recall that when you hit the Y equals key, you see that Y1 line, Y2 line, Y3 line. We're going to store this on Y1. And the way you get that Y variable on here is alpha and then trace, which is the F4 menu. And you can see the Y1 pops up there, so just hit enter. And that's what you want. You want the Y1 on that line. Okay, so once that's set up, then you just go down to the calculate and hit enter, and it will calculate your answer. You need to round this answer, but you can see how the model is formatted up there, ax squared plus bx plus c, which is just a quadratic function, and they tell you the values of a, b, and c. So we'll be rounding these values. Y equals negative 0.14. That's the a value, goes in front of the x squared. The next number there is 9.818. We're going to round that to 9.82. And that b value goes in front of the variable x. And the c is by itself, so we'll round this off to negative 106.03, rounding to 2 decimal places of accuracy. Now, I'm going to show you the sheet we had earlier, and that's the same numbers that I had on that sheet, and it's the formula for the parabola that fits the best. The quadratic regression model is another name for it. And so the next stage is just simply seeing how well it fits after we write it down. So we've got this model here, and we want to know how well it fits. Just hit graph, and you're going to see that parabola come right up through those dots following an approximate path. There really is no parabola that hits these exactly. Real life data has fluctuations, and you're trying to get a model that fits well instead of perfectly. Okay, sometimes you're asked for more, and so I'm going to show you that in case you're asked for this. What you're asked to do is predict the value of y when x is 54. In other words, if you went out on this model here until the x value was 54, what would you see for the y value? So an easy way to do this is to activate Ask mode on the table settings. So go second and window. You're actually trying to hit the table settings that's above the window key. And you want to go down twice, so you're on that third line, and over to Ask and hit enter. So that turns on Ask mode. I've trained you on that before. And now that it's on Ask mode, you're going to go second and over here to the graph key, but you're really trying to activate table. And it's ready for you to type in the 54 that we were given for the x up here. So type in 54, hit enter, and you get 13.92. So there's two ways to write that. You can say y equals 13 point, actually rounds to 93 when x is 54, or you can put it as a point, and there's that style of doing it too. And that takes you through the whole process. Now when you do this for another problem, I suggest you clear the RAM again, and then you clear the RAM at the end of doing all of this process so that your calculator hasn't got all these strange settings on it. So second, +712, and you're ready for the next problem.